Hi, I'm Lamisile Pamlingubane, and this is the Entity Dynamics podcast. So this is part two of Christianity is not an Abrahamic religion. I had actually meant to only do one part of this, but obviously this is a big topic, so I don't know what I was expecting actually. Um, so, you know, if we have a situation where a culture is established on the planet which is exclusionary, which is oppressive, right? People aren't going to accept that culture if they have been free before. And if they have a worldview that says they are allowed access to the planet's resources and allowed access to the planet and allowed the freedom of conscience and the freedom of religion, right? They're not going to do that. So you have a situation then where the Abrahamization of Christianity has allowed empire in the name of Christianity, in the name of a Christian culture. They call it Christendom. The Western world is Christendom. As if they are like the banner holders of Christ and his teachings, right? And by no means am I pointing out that the West and Europeans are like the problem on this planet. It's not that. They are people from all walks of life who have jumped on this bandwagon, and not just in the Christian religion, in other religions as well, where they've used that religion as a justification for empire. But here I'm just talking about Christianity because I come from the West. I'm a westernized person from Africa, Zulu woman, but I speak English better than I speak my native language. I'm not gonna lie about that. And I grew up Christian. Okay, so and the Western system is the system that has created the global financial system that we live. It's the Western system that has created the global governance frameworks which we all live according to. For example, the United Nations Charter is binding to all, I think, 191 countries that are signatories to it, right? That's a Western system, which is coming from Christendom. It comes from that imperial system, okay, which was inherited from Constantine, the Roman emperor. And in fact, Constantine was the first pope, essentially. Right. And if you look at the Pope today, he's not just like the Bishop of Rome. He's not the head priest of the Catholics. He's actually a king. He's the king of Vatican City. Vatican City is a country. It's not just a principality, nyana, or demarcated piece of land for the Roman Catholic Church. It's actually a country with a king who's the Pope. So the Caesars continue today through the popes of Rome. And while Vatican City can be a super tiny little piece of land, let me tell you, the extent of the Roman Catholic Church is global. It's global to this day. Every single Catholic diocese in the world pays some sort of tribute or tax or tithe to Vatican City. It's a global empire. Okay, so this imperial nature of the Vatican, of Catholicism, harkens to the Abrahamization of the path that Christ taught. Okay, so like I said, the original symbol of Christianity was the fish, because Christ said, I send you out to be fishers of men, not to set up empires on this planet, after he had very clearly said, my kingdom is not of this world. And so why the Abrahamization? Well, I explained earlier that Abraham kept slaves. Abraham had a religion which had certain limitations and boundaries, and Christ spoke about getting rid of these limitations and boundaries. Like I said, for example, he said the Sabbath is not, man is not supposed to serve the Sabbath is supposed to serve man, meaning that religious institutions and frameworks and doctrines are supposed to liberate people spiritually and connect them to God, not bog them down in rituals and systems that have no interest in their spiritual well-being, but in rituals and systems which make them slaves to religious institutions. And that's why Christ said, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and you'll find rest for your soul. Because he was saying people are burdened by all these religious norms and doctrines and rituals that they have to do all the time. And he even said to the Pharisees, you put so much of a burden on people, but you do nothing to help them carry it. And then, for example, there's a woman who on the Sabbath, she was bent over for years. She had been bent over, and she comes into the synagogue or the gathering place on the Sabbath. And then Christ says, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? He asked the Pharisees or the scribes. I don't think they answered him. He says, this woman has been bound for years like this. She was bent over. And then he released her. You're unbound now. And then she straightened up and she was healed. And he did it on the Sabbath, and they had an issue with that. Why? Because he was showing people that I am not interested in systems and rituals and norms that are not about connecting the human being to their Father in heaven. He was saying, God is your creator who loves you every day of the week. He doesn't love you only on certain days of the week. And you are connected to him every day of the week. Therefore, me in my Father's service, I am going to show you the love of the Creator every day of the week. You're going to be healed on a Sabbath as well, right? And, if we are having a worldview that says that God is confined to certain religious institutions and certain religious norms, and God is accessible only through certain institutions and certain rituals, then we are making ourselves beholden to those institutions and the people who run them. Okay? And it's like in that movie, The Matrix, right? When Morpheus is telling Neo that this whole system has reduced a human being to a battery. This system of Abrahamizing Christianity reduces the people who practice Christianity solely based on the doctrines and norms and catechisms taught to them by the Christian faith in the different denominations. It reduces them to being a servant of the institution, not the institution serving them. The institution is supposed to be the battery that charges people up and makes them conduits of Christ, of the Father, of Source, of the Creator on this planet, so that everyone can experience heaven on earth. There's supposed to be 3 billion Christians on this planet, and yet this planet half the time is hell on earth, not heaven on earth. Why is that? Why is that? So this is why I have to make this video. I'm sorry if people are offended, but quite frankly, if we're not going to have these hard conversations about the hardcore issues that are affecting our society, we're never going to have the peace. You can have 1 million United Nations. It's not going to do nothing. As long as you believe that your Creator sees you as less important than the rules and regulations of a religious institution, there's no way you're going to ever feel free. There's no way you're ever going to feel loved. And let me tell you, if you don't feel loved by your Creator, loving yourself is almost impossible, if not completely impossible. And if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to be able to be free. You're not going to be able to conceive of a life of freedom. And if you can't conceive of a life of freedom, then you can't bring heaven to earth. Because Christ said, the one who the Son frees is free indeed. Why? Because he was saying that you don't need a mediator between you and your Creator. That's why he said to the Samaritan woman, there's going to come a time where you don't worship God in Jerusalem or on this mountain. God is looking for those, he said God is spirit, and he's looking for those who are going to worship him in spirit and in truth. Spirit and in truth. It means you being honest to yourself, being honest about the world you live in, who you are, what you need, okay? And talking to your Creator directly about these things. Accessing the power of your Creator directly to bring heaven to earth. And it's not about sacrificing yourself. It's about being your true essence as a soul who came to this planet and living out your mission. Whatever beautiful dream God gave you, that's your mission. Thank you.